So let's bring it back to, happenings in the world and your activism. You said earlier that you got into, lefty spaces. Unpack that for me. I mean, when we brought up the Medicare for All component, like what else, what kind of like brought you into that world and what other things really just captured you as very important?
For me, the 2016 election, so I was 20 and I was in college, and that was just huge for me. Like I had literally never paid attention to politics before that. Never. I grew up in like a liberal household, but they like my parents, I can't tell like the one political memory I remember is Obama getting elected in 2008. Like that's the only like political memory I had up until the 2016 election. And then I remember like we would have conversations just in like the locker room and stuff, and just around campus about like the election and stuff. So I wanted to get more educated on it, just because I hate talking about stuff when I truly like don't know what I'm talking about. What if I'm not knowledgeable on the topic? I don't feel like I can actually lend my voice to it. And so that's why I wanted to do like a lot more research. And I remember I started watching probably like CNN or MSNBC or something. And of course, the entire time they were just talking about Trump, 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 like Trump this, Trump that, like literally no real information, right? Like if I'm trying to learn about politics. And so that's when I went on YouTube, and funny enough, I started watching TYT because
Mm.
I found them and they were like this huge, like, they called themselves progressives and like they were advocating for just a more equitable society. And I'm like, I think this is like, I can find a home for myself here because I agree with a lot of the stuff they're talking about. And they had long segments on like like Hillary Clinton and just about policies. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. Like, and when I get interested in something, I kind of just deep dive into it. And so I just remember I started looking at other channels. That's where I first found Jimmy on Aggressive Progressives, Kyle Kalinske with Secular Talk, and like the Rational National, Humanist Report, just like lefty YouTube channels. And I just kind of immersed myself in it. And yeah, that's kind of where it all started. And I really didn't start like talking kind of like publicly, like with my Twitter and everything until 2020, early 2020. So I did a lot of learning before I started talking about this stuff.
So you are, using your platform to really spread these messages. Have you gotten any pushback as of yet? Like, has it positive or negative?
Well, I've gotten a lot of positive feedback. I tried to do a lot of just like action stuff with my team, like whether it's going to community events, whether it's like starting like fund, like we started a rent relief fund for LA, which is gonna go out, and we work through a foundation who does who does rent relief for like low income communities in the LA area, mostly Black and Brown communities. So that's something we did. Like I started getting immersed in it. And another thing we did was we were supposed to have a scrimmage in the preseason, right in the midst of the George Floyd, whatever, everything that was going on with George Floyd and the protests. And I remember like 2 days before, or maybe even a day before we were supposed to scrimmage, the NBA, that's when they skipped the playoff game. I think when the Bucks like basically went on strike for a game. And I was like, holy like this is huge. Like this can make waves. Like this is how this can start something. And so I started talking to a lot of my teammates and found out that a lot of them felt the same way. And so we actually, instead of doing that scrimmage, we took the whole day and on a national audience on NFL Network, which was supposed to cover our game. Instead of playing the game, we actually stood in front of cameras and talked about this stuff and tried to raise the consciousness of people, like just stuff like that. And it's like, and I expected all this pushback, but I think it's tough when people see that you're fighting for stuff that's right, that's actually fighting for common people. And like I said, a lot of us come from these communities that are failures of the system that we live under. And so it's really interesting to be in like an NFL locker room, because obviously you're in the top percentile of earners, of income earners year to year, in the country, right? But a lot of us come from these communities where we didn't have anything, where football was a lot of people's only option. So it's an interesting dichotomy, and I think the NFL, like, and NFL teams are starting to understand that, us players, we're not just going to stay silent. Like, if we care about something, we're going to speak out. And it's really important when the top players like Patrick Mahomes, like Deshaun Watson, like Michael Thomas, who have guaranteed contracts, who are the face of their franchises, to speak out, because then they have leverage. There's no way that their team is going to cut Patrick Mahomes because he talks about Black Lives Matter or talks about things that, these policies or politician or whatever. They have that leverage. And that's why the NBA was so important, because they have probably the most leverage, maybe other than hockey, or not hockey, the MLB, because all their contracts are guaranteed. So as soon as they sign that contract, their 4 years or whatever salary that they get is guaranteed. So even if they get cut, that team still has to pay them money, pay them all their contract money. See, the NFL is different. Like, I don't have any guarantees in my contract. So if I get cut tomorrow, even if I'm slated to make X amount of dollars over my 4-year contract, they don't owe me shit. You see what I'm saying? So that's why the atmosphere is where you don't see a lot of people speaking out, because there's little job security in the NFL, and a lot of people, I've been playing football since I was 8. A lot of people have been playing football since we were young, and a lot of people, this was their only way out. So a lot of people aren't going to sacrifice. If you're a first, second, third year guy with no guarantees, you're not going to sacrifice your whole career because you saw what happened to Kaepernick, right? And that is a real reality for a lot of people. But at the end of the day, like, for me, the decision was, I know so much, and because I was involved in these lefty spaces, I know so much about the failures of our system and where we need to go, and I need to be using my platform to push for that. Because if I wait 5-6 years for my career to be over, and then I could have been making an impact those, that 5 or 6 or 7 years, and when I had the platform to do it, I think that would be something I would regret for the rest of my life. So I wasn't going to let that happen. And I'm hoping that this whole move, like Black Lives Matter, especially because that hits home for a lot of us players, that can start to, percolate in a lot of our minds and start the process of us coming together and speaking out more for the things that we care about.
That's really powerful, man. And that's freaking awesome. Well, have you thought about what you might do next when you're, because I mean, the NFL, it's only so long people can do that. Sure. And, so I mean, have you thought about, like, well, what's going to be next for me whenever that day comes?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely thought about it. I don't think I'm 100% sure on anything yet. I don't even know how much longer I'll play. Like, football is one of those things where, I mean, it can all end in a day. You could bust your knee up, and then that's the end, So it's kind of a weird dynamic where I'm not exactly sure where the end would be. Sure. And, I don't want to plan for something if the end is 4 or 5 years from now. How can I plan right now for what I'm going to do then? Sure. But I have some ideas for sure. A lot of people like to ask me if I'm going to run for office. And I'm like, I don't know.
Some people in the chat have already been recommending it.
Yeah, I'm not sure, really. And if I did, it probably wouldn't be for a while, just because I don't like to inhabit the spaces of these people, like these craven people. And it's like, I do see that when you go there, it does feel like it changes people to a certain extent, just being in that bubble. Obviously, if I went there, that would be, I'm running on, no, that's not what I would do, right? I'm running on the fact that I would go there and I would represent the people that put me there. And I'm not there to make friends. I would be 100% willing to call out anybody who's denying people healthcare. Like, I don't care what party you're in, you know what I mean? Like, you're just as bad as them. If they're denying people healthcare, and so are you, you know what I mean? But I like to be more on the activism side. I love organizing and just platforming other people who I think don't have a voice and should have a larger voice. And that's probably where I would start.
Right on, man. Yeah. I mean, it takes, I've had some peeks under the hood of folks who have run for office, and I'm sure you have as well. And it's
a gargantuan effort, man.
It really is. And I know people who have looked me in the eye, and I know they're not lying when they say to me, look, Ron, it was the worst experience of my life. I mean, it can be really freaking brutal. But, I'm sure that it is still in the back of your head a little bit, because you're probably also thinking like, gee, I'm an NFL player, and, you'd make a fuck of a great mayor. I mean, I especially our current guy.
I know,
we gotta get rid of him. So
we got to get rid of all of the city council, almost maybe 90%.
Yeah,
I've been in on some of those meetings, and it's like, I don't know. What happens at the national level definitely happens at local levels as well. Let's just say.
Yeah, in a place like LA, especially.
Yeah. And it's like, I think I was at the last city council meeting like a few weeks ago, and I learned that they were on like break or whatever for like a month and a half, like in the middle of this huge, like, of everything falling apart. They're just at home. Like, you know what I mean? It's unreal. It's unreal, but we'll see. We'll see, man. I definitely won't rule it out. I think that's something, if I did, I think it would make an impact, and I would definitely be all out fighting for, the people that need help the most. And I think that's what someone like myself, that's the best thing I could do is like I said, platform issues and solutions that are going to help communities that like my dad came from, like my mom and her parents came from in Mississippi and in the inner city of Chicago. Like, these are people that I know and love, and they're good, decent people that work really freaking hard, really hard to just survive and have a family and all these things. And it shouldn't be that hard for them in this country. Like, it just shouldn't. And I know that. And I think if we can get more people to see that the solutions are not that hard, they're not radical, they're not pie in the sky, they're decisions. It's decisions that people make. It's a decision for Joe Biden to, instead of taking Bernie's Medicare expansion plan in his COVID relief bill, to subsidize Cobra to the tune of probably hundreds of billions of dollars. That's a decision he's making. Like, we are that close to actually having equitable society in this country. People in power making the right decisions, signing bills into law that are going to actually help people. Like, that's how close we are. And if we just need more people pushing that message and letting normal Americans and helping them to understand that these things are not that far away and they're not hard to do. And we've been so propagandized, obviously, with the media in this country, that people just don't see that as a possibility. They just don't see it. And I think the perfect example of that is Joe Biden winning in states where he didn't even have campaign offices, and the exit polls saying that those people want Medicare for all. You're like, how? We're talking about people that are, disillusioned or even have some type of delusion, right? Like, we think of like right-wingers, Republicans, they're voting against their own interests. Well, why are you voting for Joe Biden if you want Medicare for all and he said he's going to veto it? Why are you voting for him? Well, it's the media, right? And so I think we just have to reach more people. And that's what I want to do, is I want to help reach more people so we can actually have numbers. We need numbers. We need people to rise up together and demand these things. And once we start demanding these things, we'll start getting these things.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and